We're live.
It'll pop up. It's not live yet.
Oh,
No. We might be. Oh, you're live.
Yep,
We're live.
We are.
Hey, we're live. Woohoo. Hi, I'm Kelly Adams with Coldwell Banker, Realty Group 1. And I'm here with Bria Tadikin-Williams and Tara Claycamp, and we're doing our first Facebook Live. So it's an attempt to try and get education out to you folks through Facebook. And we plan on doing it for the next 4 weeks, next 4 Fridays, and we'll kind of see how it goes and evaluate from there. So thank you for joining in on our first Facebook Live. Today's topic is going to be something that we call here at the office the 4 hurdles, and we really believe that education is as important, if not more important, than representation of our clients. Obviously, representation is important, but having clients that are educated is the main responsibility for us. So with that said, it goes back to the education, and with sellers and buyers, a lot of times they don't know what the process is going forward, and that's what we talk about on the 4 hurdles. The 4 hurdles, Bria, you want to tell us what the hurdles are?
Yes. When I meet with my clients, I explain to them that the 4 hurdles are essentially negotiating the contract, secondly, inspections, third, the appraisal, and then fourth, the underwriting final loan approval process. And so I give them the 4 hurdles, and then we start to break those down. So is this the time we should start breaking those down?
Sure.
Okay. So since I'm already talking, I'll go ahead and take the first one. So we know that when we think of a real estate transaction, so many of us think as price being the one big term that everyone cares about. But we know that once that offer comes in, and as an agent, we review all the terms, there's a variety of things a buyer could ask for. Obviously, we have that purchase price, but also things we take into consideration include how much earnest money the buyer is putting down. Do they need closing cost assistance? What's the closing date? We know that occupancy of a home or departure of a home can be, I won't say deal breaker, but it can be an obstacle for a lot of buyers and sellers. Sometimes buyers are asking for extended coverage through a home warranty. They may also have what I lovingly refer to as paragraph 26 of the contract, any additional terms or conditions. That may be where a buyer requests that the seller leaves a play set or a washer and dryer. So we like to say in real estate, everything is negotiable, and it's just not that purchase price. So when we receive that offer, as your agent, we sit down, we review all the terms, and then that's when we get with you and we start, going through those terms, figuring out what the priorities are and what, are terms that you can work with. And sometimes, again, going back to, closing, can you close on that date? What conversations do we need to have?
Yep.
All right, and I'll talk about the second hurdle. We'll give Bria a break to get some of her coffee, because if you know Bria, you know that coffee is important.
Especially this time of day.
It is.
And I'll talk about the second hurdle, which is the inspection period. And the inspection period is one of those negotiated items. It's typically 10 to 14 days, and at that time you can do any inspection you like, whether whole house, termite, radon, or very common ones, but you can do sewer cams, furnace inspections, electrical, roof. It's almost endless.
Sprinkler systems. Easy to forget about sprinkler systems.
Yeah.
Fireplaces.
Fireplace. Yep.
Yeah, and the buyer pays for these inspections. And during that time period that's negotiated, like I said, whether it's 10 or 14 days, is also when we present any unacceptable conditions to the seller, and we negotiate that out again, which is why we consider it another hurdle, because it's another renegotiation period in the transaction. And
it's important to remember, I think, that we negotiate throughout the whole transaction, and and you've negotiated the price and terms and the place set and whatever on the first hurdle. Well, in the second hurdle, when a buyer goes back to a seller, it opens up everything all over again. So price is back being on the table, closing, even that place set can be back on the table. That, okay, well, if I've got to replace the windows, I'm taking the place set. So the negotiation, like you said, goes throughout the whole transaction. What happens if, what are the buyer's options in negotiating? What are the buyer's options in negotiating inspections?
Yeah, so you can ask for a price reduction, you can ask for additional money towards closing costs, or you can ask for the reseller to repair the items that you feel are unacceptable.
Can a buyer walk away?
And you can also walk away and terminate a contract if you feel that the inspections brought forth things that just are not something that you feel like taking on in your purchase of the home.
So what if a seller is willing to fix something? The infamous cracked toilet seat example.
Right.
So can a buyer cancel the contract over a cracked toilet seat that the seller is willing to fix or replace?
Yes.
Why do we allow that? That's crazy.
I know. It's, that a buyer does. It's part of the terms of the contract that they have that ability, that if it's just not right for them, that they can terminate the contract.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, and I would say, and get their earnest money back.
With the reason it's in the contract, and I know in the old days, we'll go back to the old days, we didn't have that clause in the contract. And what would happen is there'd be the seller or the buyer was basically stuck in the contract. And it's pretty tough to make someone buy a house they don't want. In 23 years, I've never seen a situation where a buyer's had actually purchased a house. There's been other ramifications, but the actual purchase of the house, I've never seen happen. So allowing a buyer to cancel contract off of a cracked toilet seat, if a buyer is leaving because of that, they have buyer's remorse. If they got buyer's remorse, it's better to know it at the get-go, and let's get the contract canceled. And as Tara was saying, we generally limit it to 10 to 14 days and get the house back on the market and get a buyer who actually wants the house. So it sounds crazy, but it's actually better for the seller to let the buyer walk.
Right.
And I would say from a seller's perspective, this inspection period, the second hurdle, is probably the hurdle that causes the most anxiety and stress and heartburn, because you really don't have much control. Like Kelly said, buyer's remorse sets in. There you are, as a seller, but we want to get it back on the market, and hopefully, we don't end up in that situation where the house gets canceled after inspections, and then we can move into that third hurdle. So, being the appraisals. So basically, an appraisal is done. It's hired by the bank through a third party, and essentially that appraisal is done so that the bank can on a loan, obviously, I can confirm the value of the home, because worst case scenario, if something happens, the bank ends up taking the home back and then they become the seller of the property. They want to ensure that the home is worth what they lent, or, the amount they lended on the home. So that happens right after there's some caveats, but that's the third hurdle to get through. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be here with us all day. So, but that is a cost that the buyer does, take on. Hopefully that turnaround from when the appraisal gets ordered to when the appraiser goes out to the home, then submits the report to the bank, we're hoping no more than 10 days. Again, that's out of our control, but we're here to help guide you guys through those caveats.
So what happens if the house doesn't appraise?
Well, like we say in real estate, everything is negotiable. So at that point, there's an option to submit written notice to the seller saying the house didn't appraise. We want a reduction in purchase price. I've had scenarios in my own practice where there's a $2,000 difference on appraised value and contract price. So the sellers dropped the price $1,000. The buyers brought $1,000 of their own money because both parties felt that $2,000 gap, they felt confident that when they went to sell later, the house would, still be worth that. If parties can't come to terms, the contract could cancel. That is one of the cancellation provisions.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on what Bria was saying, when the difference is so narrow too, some buyers look at it too, that to go and find another home and to redo inspections and all of that, and a delay, that sometimes it's not worth it. We talk a lot about peace of mind, and the peace of mind is worth a certain amount too to going forwards and not incur expenses on a second time for a second home. And who knows how that one will play out too. So.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that in appraisal, there are no two houses exactly alike. And most of the appraisers are pretty good with understanding that the sale price of a home is what a seller's willing to pay for it and what a buyer's willing to buy it for. And as Bria said, the appraiser is actually working for the bank. The buyer's buying it, paying for it, buyer's paying for it, but it's the bank's appraisal. And that's to ensure, as Bria said, that they're not overpaying or there's any shenanigans going on. So now we've got buyers and sellers, and we're over hurdle 1, we're over hurdle 2.
Yeah.
House appraised.
Woohoo. House appraised, yeah.
Okay, so what's their hurdle 4?
Hurdle 4 is underwriting and the final loan commitment phase. And that one's where, the bank they've gathered all this information from you. You've sent in your tax returns, your pay stubs, bank statement.
Pint of blood.
Yeah. Some forms probably 4 times, but you sent them in and they have them. It just kind of happens. And your loan officer has now sent the file through to their underwriting department, and the underwriting department is reviewing it just to make sure everything is correct. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the appraisal has come in, everything looks good on the bank's side of things. And then once the file is out of underwriting, then it moves into their closing department. And in theory, that's a quick process and you get to close on your home. But as we've also talked about in real estate, there's a lot of things that can come up. And sometimes, through any of these processes, there's delays and things need to be resubmitted or double checked or kind of gone back through. And so, this is kind of one of those last, times that the property can get delayed. And so I know we encourage people here to have, kind of contingency plans, because even though throughout the whole transaction, that's the date we're shooting for, things happen. And it can even be something, weather, that delays a closing packet or mail, because we need originals. Even though we're in a digital age, we still need original wet ink signatures on most of our documents, especially for the closing.
And we also see the unexpected happen. Yeah. So let's say we have that clear to close. I'm your buyer's agent. We run out to the house to do the final walkthrough and the kitchen's flooded. We now have a house that obviously you as the buyer do not want to close on because we have a flooded main level. It's going to have to be gutted and rebuilt. Guess what? Now we have to, go a few steps back and move forward. Or let's say it's a small leak under the kitchen sink, but it's done a little damage. Well, it used to be pre-TRID, as you may hear us talk about throughout your transaction. Oh, Mr. Seller is going to give you $500 in closing costs to help with that. Well, there's some nuances where if we do that, well, now we have an automatic 3-day delay. So it goes back to having that contingency plan that, okay, if your contract says you close April 23rd, everyone's going to work their hardest to make that happen. Right. But there's just unforeseen circumstances that can pop up, and then we all, scramble.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it sure reduces everybody's stress, ours, but most important, the clients, if they've been prepared for that. So that's why we go over the fourth hurdle as well.
And Kelly, I know as our supervising broker, you've had this question come up from us agents before. Hey, we're not going to close on time. The other side wants to cancel. Can that happen?
You can't just, there's a misnomer out there that a buyer can just cancel. And the legal way to cancel a contract is whatever within the terms of the contract. So when someone comes into my office and says, hey, the buyer just doesn't want to buy the house anymore, and they want to cancel, it just doesn't work that way. So at that point, I say, well, they're going to need to talk to their attorney, and the attorneys have to get involved at that point. So if you're a buyer, you need to be aware that you just can't cancel because you decide you don't want to buy the house. You need to talk to your agent, and any canceling of the contract needs to be within the terms that are allowed within the contract. So anything else, ladies, that we need to review? We're at our
I think that's just a good overview of those four hurdles.
I was going to say, I think it's a good overview without keeping you here, all day. And
and I think the most important thing to remember with the transaction, I think it's some of Kelly's most infamous words, everything is negotiable.
Right.
And there's so many caveats, nuances that happen that no two transactions are alike, just like no two homes are alike. And so we're here to help. Basically, I tell people I'm not negative Nancy. I swear I'm not. But I'm here to help you anticipate A, B, C, and D. And then when we get to whatever stage we're in, we can help you guys prepare, anticipate, and
just advise you through that process.
Yep. So that way you're not left feeling so much like you're in the dark.
Yeah, the feeling left in the dark, not knowing what's going on, it just adds to stress. And there's enough stress in real estate, so we try to lessen that.
Yeah.
Should we wrap up then?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. And like Kelly said, we'll be back next Friday at 9:30.
Probably won't be me. Probably Travis. I think probably everybody knows. Yeah, I know.
Oh boy, it's going to be high energy. Maria's going to need more coffee.
Yeah.
And we're hoping this is successful, and then we'll rotate other agents through, and because everyone here, we're a large office, and everyone seems to have their own kind of area of expertise and knowledge. I certainly don't know everything. I'll send people to another agent. So we have high hopes for this.
And if there's anything you guys want, address, definitely leave in the comments or shoot it on our Facebook page. Again, we have all this institutional knowledge, but we know that you don't know what you don't know. So if there's something out there you guys want to hear about, tell us. We're all happy to talk about it.
For sure.
All right.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.